I suffer from big ego, low self-esteem. And when I say big ego, it's only about telling jokes. If it's got something to do with my work, I'm the baddest motherfucker alive. But anything else, it's like I just feel not worthy of anyone's attention, anyone's love, any accolades, just anything.
I can't tell you that I'm any different. I don't know. I mean, I do know where it comes from. It all stems from your relationship with your parents and how you were raised.
It stems from a relation with your parents. It stems from, you went through this, you and I have this in common. Like, you went to a black school, I went to a white school. And you have this childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with. And you think you've dealt with it because you're on the radio and you talk about it and you made a lot of money. And I think I've dealt with it because I can write jokes about it, but I never dealt with it. That was just a horrible existence. The closest character I can relate to is Tim Robbins in The Shawshank. Every day was hell. I was a nigga and I got fucking my ass beat and I got physically fucked up and sometimes some sexual shit happened. And yeah, like I wasn't rape, but rape-ish.
Don't you remember the name of every kid who beat the shit out of you?
I was doing a movie a couple of years ago and one of my bullies was working security on the movie.
Shit.
A guy who literally one day in school turned me upside down and shook the money out of my pockets. And I'm filming a scene. This is a top 5. And I look and I'm like, is that B? I'll just say B. And he nodded, kind of shame, he was kind of ashamed. And I just gave him just a quick look like, hey man, I hope you're doing well. You take care. And I kept it moving. I didn't like, get him off the set, get him fired. It's like his sin has punished him. He could have been my friend.
Right.
You know what I mean? He could have been in the trailer with us watching The Godfather. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he had to go through that whole day and watch me walk around and watch me, I was directing a movie and watch me be me in all my glory and to be so close to me, but yet so motherfucking far.
Right. You got your revenge. Yeah.
I didn't have to do anything. You ever watch Bugs Bunny? Bugs
all
Bunny.
the time.
When did Elmer Fudd get really mad at Bugs Bunny? Not when he shot him in the face with an anvil. Not when he hit him over the head with a rock. You know when Elmer Fudd got really mad? When Bugs Bunny kissed him.
Yeah, that's true.
That's when he would lose his mind. And when somebody like does you wrong, just give him a kiss.
Wow, powerful, powerful interview. He said something that was legendary, okay? He said that when he saw the guy that used to bully him, he could have gotten vengeance. He could have said, man, get this guy off the set, right? He said, but his sin had already cost him. He could have been with Chris Rock, could have been hanging out with him, sharing in his life, sharing in his experience. But because he did what he did to him when they was younger, he couldn't take any part in that. See, that's genius right there. While Chris Rock is saying I hadn't dealt with it, it sounds like he dealt with it perfectly. Instead of taking out vengeance on the person who had offended him, listen, guys, the greatest act of vengeance on your enemy is to not be like them. If you become your enemy, then you are your enemy. Do you understand? So the greatest act of vengeance is to not be like your enemy. Don't stoop to their level. You understand? Just do you. And that's exactly what he did. He just did him. And that's true, family. For all the people who've disrespected us and done us wrong in the past, we don't have to go get vengeance on them. The key is just move along right without them. Because these things happen in life so you can separate yourself from the mob. Do you understand? When they show you that they're not worthy of you, separate yourself. But don't let that dig into how you see yourself. Do you understand? That's the other part. We're going to deal with the rest of what he said, but I want to play this other clip first. I want you guys to see how Will Smith and Chris Rock have a lot in common when it comes to how they grew up. All right? Check this one out.
Daddy was one of the greatest blessings of my life and also one of my greatest sources of pain. There were two issues. First, he had a brutal temper. And second, his drinking. When he was angry or drunk, he became an idiot. He would break his own rules, subvert his own objectives, destroy his own things. my mom is in many ways the total opposite of my father. Whereas Daddy-O was the boisterous, charismatic center of attention, my mom carried a quiet, reserved elegance.
Will recalls one particularly bad night when his father hit his mother so hard she spit up blood.
Each of my siblings responded differently in ways that would go on to define who we were for much of our lives. If Harry was fight, Ellen was flight, and I became a pleaser. I wanted to please and placate him because as long as Daddy-O was laughing and smiling, I believed we would be safe. My little 9-year-old brain processed Daddy-O's abusive episodes as somehow being my fault. I should have been able to keep my father satisfied. I should have been able to protect my mother.
The Pursuit of Happiness star added that he carried the guilt of doing nothing to help her in that moment for a lifetime.
My young identity congealed in my mind, an unshakable feeling that no matter what I have done, no matter how successful I've become, no matter how much money I've made or how many #1 hits I've had, how many box office records I've broken, there's that subtle and silent feeling always pulsating in the back of my mind that I'm a coward, that I've failed, that I'm sorry, my mom, so sorry.
There's this movie called Westworld. If you haven't seen it, check it out, okay? It's about these robots. These robots have no clue that they're robots, and they navigate by this narrative. The designer gives them what he calls a backstory as code to kind of govern and control how they think and live. So the backstory will be just like any of our past stories, how we grew up, what happened to us when we were young, if we had both parents in the home, if we were married or whatever. These robots are downloaded with this backstory. And when they're turned on, they simply believe that it was truly their past. They don't know that it's code or that it's just a narrative that's given to them, okay? And so they act this out every single day, okay? Now, all these robots are on this island that people pay loads of money to go to interact with these robots and do things to and with these robots that they wouldn't do in the real world because there'd be consequences, correct? And so they go out there to let the best come out of them or let the worst come out of them, whatever the case may be, okay? Now, when they're out there doing these egregious acts to these robots, it could be anything, murdering them, beating them up, raping them, dragging them on the back of a horse, hanging them, whatever they're doing to them. When it's happening, the robots actually believe it's happening. Regardless of if it's happened a million times before, they believe it's happening right now. Because every time an egregious act is done to them, whenever they are repaired and put back together, they're rebooted. They get deleted out of the thing that happened to them, but restored with their backstory. So the next time you see them, they're back out playing their roles, doing the same thing, even though you just saw their head get blown off yesterday by somebody else. Now here they are back again as a robot, carrying out the same scene, saying the same words exactly verbatim, but they don't know it. So they have this cyclic nature. They keep recreating their yesterday, recreating their past. Don't you see how we have a lot in common with them? We recreate our past. We wake up every single rise and we remember what our life was like yesterday and reproject that out on the world as if today has anything at all to do with yesterday. It's very scary, family. All right, so if you really think about this, your backstory, every single rise, you use that backstory to carry out your narrative every single day. And that creates the cyclic nature simply because you remember what happened to you. Remember, it means to put back together again, to member once again. These events are gone, family. They've already happened. They are gone. The only thing that's happening is we are putting them back together again in our mind, being traumatized by them once again, and then self-sabotaging ourselves or asking or measuring ourselves up against that remembered experience and asking ourselves, are we good enough? Chris Rock said he suffers from a large ego, low self-esteem. And the low self-esteem comes from being bullied in school. In school, family. It's been a long time since he's been in school. But keep in mind, he keeps on remembering this backstory. And that is what helps to shape who he is. So the smack that he took from Will Smith, well, many of us look at it and say he stood his ground, he stayed in his man frame, and he did the right thing, the right thing, a thing that a strategic man would have done in that moment, would have been to do exactly what he did. But for that moment, for Chris Rock, it may have not been a strategic moment. That could have been a traumatizing moment in which where he felt like he cowered again because he didn't respond to Will Smith adequately. with parallel anger. You understand? He could have been standing there with that smack on his face, literally being bullied. To us, it looks like he handled that well. To him, that could have been a reoccurrence of things that happened in his past. Somebody hitting him for no reason, and he responds in that way. Do you understand? Now watch this. Will Smith, on the other hand, grew up watching his father beat his mother, and at 9 years old, felt like he should have stepped in. And that's what shaped his outlook on life, wondering if he was a coward, feeling like he cowered that day. He didn't cower that day. He was 9 years old. What could you have done? You're a child. Okay, but he told himself as a child there was something that he should have done. That backstory has shaped his outlook on life. Seeing his mother beaten has likely shaped his outlook on women. When it comes time to confront his wife for something that he doesn't like, he may actually go all the way around Jacob's barn just to not hurt her. He may actually not say exactly what he means just to not hurt her, because he saw his mother be hurt and he doesn't want to inflict pain on a woman in any way. Trauma is powerful, family. What I want to say to you guys is, and Chris Rock and Will Smith alike, is you can go through life, and like you saw with these two gentlemen, they're very successful. But while they're very successful, they still have trauma that still lives in them through what they went through as a child that they say they've never dealt with. Again, accept it, family. Accept that it happened. What did you take from it? That's what says who you are. What did you do with it? In life, we all go through something. What we make of it is what says a lot about us. We are not still what happened to us. You have never been what happened to you. Okay? What happened to you actually stems from who the people who did that to you were. The people who bullied Chris Rock, it actually says more about them than it does Chris Rock. Will Smith's father, it says more about him than it does his father. Than it does Will Smith. His actions towards his mother, towards Will Smith's mother, shows more about his father than Will Smith. But what we do as children is we take on the burdens, family, and we start believing that it's us. And what it does is it creates self-sabotage. Okay, whenever you would think about doing something in life, speaking up, creating, what'll happen is you'll remind yourself of those moments in your life. And I talked about that elephant, how that elephant can be, how an elephant on its own is the strongest animal on the planet. Okay, pound for pound, I think it's the gorilla, but the elephant is up there in the top. Okay, but you can see an elephant, as strong as it is, tied to a stake in the ground, and it won't move. And you'll say, why? It's definitely strong enough. They can knock down trees, correct? But it's because they tie them up at so young. Like, let me tell you this quick story. There was a man, and he was walking from one place to the other, and he comes across this elephant capturer, this man who had a lot of elephants. And he saw these big, powerful beasts tied to a stake in the ground. And he asked him, how are you able to keep these big elephants tied to a stake in the ground? If they just forget they're there, they could walk off and pull them out of the ground. They don't even have to try. How are you able to keep them captured by just tying a rope around their neck and putting and tying it to a stake in the ground? And the man said, it's because we do it when they're young. When we first put the rope on their neck and tie them to the stake, they are not strong enough to move it. And we keep it on. And so as they grow, they just still believe that they're not strong enough to move it because of the one time in their life that they couldn't move it. This is Chris Rock and Will Smith. This is all of us when it comes to trauma. We remind ourselves of the trauma and still tell ourselves or convince ourselves that we're incapable. We question our own worth, our own value, even though the whole world is saying to you, you're a star. Chris Rock said through his accolades, his ego is huge. But through his person, he has low self-esteem. And his accolades, his money, all that came to him because of who he is. You're funny, you're charismatic, you're witty. People would want to be around you. But he said himself, he doesn't feel worthy of that. You understand? Even though he's worthy of that because people come and give him that, throw that at him. They want to be around him. When you're charismatic and you have a big personality, people love to be around you. You know what I mean? But if you've been through trauma, you could tell yourself that all of that is nothing. And you won't even trust the people who come around you. You'll think they're coming around to use you. Do you understand? You will literally think someone's coming around to use you. Like I said, family, those backstories are equivalent to trauma, okay? I'm going to say this, then we're going to end the video, but there's 3 different types of trauma. It's acute trauma, which stems from a one-time incident. Then you have chronic trauma that is repeated or prolonged. that's repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. Then you have complex trauma, which is exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, often of an invasive or interpersonal nature. I would say more so Will Smith suffers from chronic trauma, repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. He had the father who was abusing his mother, and that's what he witnessed, and that dug into how Will Smith sees himself. Next, complex trauma is exposure to varied, multiple traumatic events like Chris Rock, every day in school, being bullied, being intimidated, being called out of your name. He said it wasn't rape, but it was definitely close to it, the things that they did to him. So again, often of an invasive or interpersonal nature. You understand? And so, of course, acute trauma is from a single incident. Many of you guys have been through one thing in your life, and you've told yourself with your anecdotal experience that this is how it's always going to be. You may have dated somebody and you said, now all men or women are bad. And it's crazy because it's mainly what happens to us through school that changes our outlook on life. Men try being faithful to a woman. She do him dirty, and now he a dog because he's fearful that that'll ever happen to him again. A man really liked a woman and tried to be kind to her and try to get with her by being kind to her, but she told him he was too nice. And she went with somebody who didn't treat her right at all. And that man said, okay, I didn't like how that felt. And then he saw all the girls his age going to these bad boys. So he becomes a bad boy. And now he's that way. And this happened in his young life. And it changed how he literally lived his whole life. How kids were behaving shaped how they lived their whole life. Okay? Women go through school in the young ages, get cheated on by a man, okay, get used for sex by a man. And this literally changes their whole outlook on men, period. Things we suffer in our adolescence, family. This is why we got to be accountable to those things in our past by confronting them so we can have a great future. You don't want something from that far in your past to rise to the surface and sabotage your future. You definitely don't want to keep sabotaging yourself with these memories by remembering them, putting those memories back together again, and daily projecting them on the world, telling yourself that you are who you were in high school. It's a very dangerous place to be in. And if you think you are there, man, y'all need to reach out to me. Y'all need to look yourself in the mirror and pick yourself up, push yourself forward, knowing that you are not that person in the mirror, okay? Again, from this instant, vow to stop sabotaging yourself. Vow to stop disappointing yourself with memories that you conjure back up in your mind and convince yourself that you still are. Separate yourself from the mob. Separate yourself from all negative talkers or anybody who does not uplift you. And decide today to be an extraordinary individual regardless of what happened in your past. None of that matters, family. Absolutely none of it matters. Today is a new day. You don't have to carry any of that with you. I always say our problem is we have pockets and refrigerators. We don't know what it feels like to just throw something away and just go create a new. Do you understand? I'm saying that symbolically, but we always carry around a whole bunch of crap we don't need. Reach in your pockets, you got a piece of lint in your pocket from 76. A phone number in your pocket from 1982. And that's how we are with our memories. We hold on to it. Will Smith and Chris Rock alike, they have enough in their mind that they could use to build themselves up, enough accomplishments that they could use to build themselves up. But trauma is a hell of a drug, family. Fear is a hell of a drug, family. And you will continue to feed yourself that crap, believing that you're that stuff instead of the greatness. You're all of it. Accept yourself as the I am. You are the good and the bad that you have done, but all of it. Rise to be a greater you. Leave the rest behind. Don't get high self-esteem saying that by living your life according to what you have done, but don't have low self-esteem living your life according to your failures either. You know what I'm saying? Wake up every day knowing that life is what you make of it. Yesterday don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a beautiful day today. You haven't saw this day. Don't wake up and tell yourself you're broke and that you're not good enough and that you're horrible in some way because of something that happened in the past. Now that's you. See, when you're young, your parents, your friends, these bullies, they're going to be mean to you. But then as you grow up, you're going to continue that process. Likely somebody said that you were ugly once. They said you were stinking once, said that you were no good, that you wouldn't have a future once or a couple of times. But every other day, you are the perpetrator of that nonsense. You retell yourself that same crap. You recreate the hell that you live in. This is your doing, and it happens in your mind. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Break away from that rope and that stake elephant. You are an elephant. You are the remover of obstacles. Tell yourself that. You are not to be bound by some thought. You are more powerful than the thought. Okay? Make your body a slave to your mind, not your mind a slave to your body, your past experiences. Do you understand? Family, I really hope that we all can grow from this by witnessing that these two powerful men who have definitely been in our lives since we were younger. I'm hoping that these two men can show us that this trauma exists in us all, regardless of how much success you have, regardless of how far you seem to go. If you don't deal with these issues may come back to haunt you. So deal with them, accept them. I am my greatness and my failures. I'm all of that. And with it, this is who I choose to be. It's really simple, family. All right, family, peace.